The emergency meeting room of the Galactic Council had never seen such chaos. Dozens of alien representatives from across the galaxy sat in their floating chairs, their voices creating a symphony of fear and desperation. The massive holographic screen at the center showed nothing but static and broken signals from the outer rim worlds. Ambassador Vextai, a tall blue-skinned creature with 4 arms, stood at the control panel. His normally steady hands shook as he pressed the playback button for what felt like the 100th time. The room fell silent as the crackling transmission filled the air once again. Emergency broadcast. This is Commander Thale of the Epsilon Defense Force. Day 7 of the invasion. The voice was human-like, but belonged to one of the reptilian Cathari species. Terror made his words stumble and break. The Devourers.
Ow.
They've awakened from their ancient sleep. 3 star systems are gone. Just ... Gone. Kepler 442, New Centauri, the Vega colonies. Billions of people turned into raw materials for these machines. The transmission crackled with interference before continuing. Our greatest battleships lasted maybe 2 hours. The things are the size of moons, but they move like fighters. They eat planets, strip them down to nothing, and use everything too. Build more of themselves. We sent everything we had. The 7th Imperial Fleet, the Rangers, even the old war machines from the museum. Nothing works. Nothing even slows them down. A long pause filled with static made everyone lean forward. Then Thale's voice returned, weaker now. If anyone receives this... don't come here. Don't try to help. Just run. Run as far as you can, and hope these things don't follow. This is Commander Thale, signing off. The stars forgive us all. The transmission cut to static, leaving the council chamber in complete silence. Council leader Morden slowly rose from his floating throne. His species looked like giant octopi, and his tentacles moved in nervous patterns that everyone recognized as deep fear. For over 12,000 years, he had guided the Galactic Council through disputes and minor wars. It always found solutions through talking, through sharing technology, through careful planning, and smart strategies. My fellow council members' Morden's voice echoed through the chamber, each word carefully chosen. In all our recorded history, we have maintained peace through wisdom. Our advanced civilizations have solved every crisis through cooperation and superior technology. We have fleets that can destroy stars. We have weapons that can crack planets. In half, we have defensive systems that can stop anything in the known universe. He paused, his tentacles curling tighter. And yet, in less than 1 standard week, the Devourers have completely destroyed 3 of our most protected systems. Our most powerful warships were torn apart like paper toys. Billions of our citizens are dead, converted into building materials. For an enemy that grows stronger with every victory, the chamber remained dead quiet. Everyone knew what was coming next, but no one wanted to hear it. Science Director Kyle Beth, an insect-like being with compound eyes that reflected the chamber's lights, slowly stood up. Her voice was so quiet that the translation systems had to amplify it. Honored Council, there is one option we have not considered. One military force we have never called upon. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Every species present knew exactly what she meant, but the words hung in the air like a curse no one wanted to speak. The Deathworlders, she whispered. A wave of fear rolled through the assembled representatives. Some made religious gestures. Others activated personal shield systems out of pure instinct. The mere mention of that word brought back memories that every civilized species tried to forget. Humanity. The bipedal creatures from the 3rd planet, orbiting a yellow dwarf star in a nothing system at the edge of known space. They had been discovered 200 years ago by accident, and the discovery had changed everything the galaxy thought it knew about life in the universe. Most intelligent life evolved on garden worlds. Pleasant planets with gentle weather, abundant resources, and few natural dangers. These peaceful environments created civilized species that valued knowledge, art, and careful progress. Earth was different. Earth was hell, a planet where the weather could kill without warning, where the ground shook randomly and mountains exploded, where the very air was poison to most species, where evolution had created millions of predator species all trying to eat each other in an endless cycle of violence. Most scientists agreed that nothing intelligent should have been able to survive there, much less develop space travel. But humans did more than survive. They thrived. They turned their hostile world into a training ground that forged them into something the galaxy had never seen before. Living weapons that thought warfare was a form of entertainment. Creatures that looked at impossible odds and smiled. The Galactic Council had made contact with humanity exactly once. The human representatives had been polite, friendly, and absolutely terrifying. They spoke casually about surviving disasters that would have wiped out entire civilizations. They treated deadly radiation like a minor inconvenience. They had scars. From fighting predators that could tear through battle armor, after that first meeting, the Council had made a unanimous decision. Humanity would be quarantined. Official records stated it was to protect other species from human violence and unpredictability. But the truth was simpler and more frightening. The Council was afraid. Council. Leader Morden looked around the chamber at the faces of representatives from 1,000 worlds. All of them showed the same expression of fear mixed with desperate hope. "Contact Earth," he finally said, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision. "Send them everything we know about the Devourers, and pray to whatever gods we serve that they agree to help us." Admiral Jack Thompson had been drinking his morning coffee when the priority alert came through. The bridge of the UES Retribution went from its usual calm morning routine to full battle stations in less than 30 seconds. Red warning lights bathed everything in an urgent glow as his crew moved with the practiced efficiency of people who had spent their entire careers preparing for the impossible. The holographic display in the center of the bridge showed the garbled transmission. From the outer rim, Thompson watched it twice, his weathered face showing no emotion as alien voices screamed about world-eating machines and unstoppable mechanical horrors. Around him, his senior staff were already working, their fingers flying over control panels. In tactical displays, "Sir," called out Communications Officer Lisa Martinez from her station near the back of the bridge. Her voice was steady, despite the chaos of incoming signals. "Priority transmission from Earth Command coming through now. Admiral Hayes wants to speak with you directly." Thompson nodded and activated his personal comm system. The grizzled face of Fleet Admiral Hayes appeared on his screen, looking like he had not slept in days. Behind Hayes, Thompson could see the organized chaos of Earth's primary military command center. Jack Hayes said without any greeting pleasantries, "I assume you have seen the transmission from the Galactic Council?" "Yes, sir. Ancient war machines eating entire star systems. Council fleets getting torn apart in hours. It's pretty standard Tuesday. For us, I guess." Hayes actually smiled at that, though it did not reach his eyes. "The President and the Joint Chiefs have made their decision. We are authorizing full deployment of the 7th Expeditionary Fleet. Everything you have got, Jack. Every ship, every Marine, every crazy engineer who thinks physics is more of a suggestion than a law." Thompson felt a familiar excitement building in his chest. The 7th Expeditionary Fleet was humanity's answer to situations that other species would consider completely hopeless. 200 warships ranging from massive dreadnoughts to fast attack cruisers, each ship crewed by people who had volunteered for the most dangerous job in human space, going places where normal people could not survive, and fighting things that should not exist. "Understood, sir? Rules of engagement?" "There are no rules, Jack. The Council is desperate enough to ask for our help after 200 years of pretending we do not exist. That tells me everything I need to know about how bad this situation really is. Use whatever tactics you think will work. The only rule is to win." The transmission ended, leaving Thompson alone with his thoughts for exactly 3 seconds before his senior staff surrounded his command chair. These were people he had served with for over a decade. People who understood that sometimes the only way to solve an impossible problem was to think like someone who had grown up on the most dangerous planet in the known. Galaxy Captain Mike Anderson was the first to speak. Anderson had earned his position by successfully leading boarding parties against pirate bases hidden in asteroid fields and enemy stations, protected by automated defense systems that could vaporize normal soldiers. "Orders, sir?" Thompson stood up and activated the main tactical display. The holographic map of local space appeared, showing shipping lanes, jump points, and the location of the devourer threat. To most species, this would look like a standard military planning session, but humans saw it differently. They saw a puzzle to be solved through creative violence. Simple, Thompson said, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who had spent his entire career turning hopeless situations into victories. We are going to show these devourers why every civilized species in the galaxy is afraid of Deathworlders. He pulled up detailed tactical displays that would have given alien military strategists panic attacks. Human battle doctrine was built around concepts that other species considered insane: acceptable losses, controlled chaos, and the strategic use of desperation as a weapon. The Council species fight wars like chess matches, Thompson continued, pointing at various tactical positions. Everything planned, everything calculated, everything done by the book. But we grew up on a world where the book was written by things trying to eat us. Navigation Officer Daniel Brooks looked up from his station. Course plotted for the Kepler 442 system, sir. We can be there in 6 standard days if we push the engines to maximum burn. Do it, Thompson ordered. And send word to all ship commanders. Full combat readiness. This is not a rescue mission or a diplomatic escort. This is what we do best. Going somewhere extremely dangerous and breaking things that need to be broken. Bridge erupted in controlled activity as orders went out to the entire fleet. In the hangar bays, Marine units began loading combat gear that included weapons most species would consider war crimes. Technicians started preparing equipment that could turn ordinary ship systems into improvised weapons. In the medical bays, doctors reviewed procedures for treating wounds that should not be survivable. Within an hour, 7th Expeditionary Fleet was moving through space with the terrible precision of apex predators heading toward their prey. 200 human warships carrying 20,000 of the most dangerous people in the galaxy, heading toward an enemy that had already destroyed 3 star systems for the first time in months. Admiral Thompson felt genuinely excited about going to work. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had been quarantined. It's not because they were too primitive or too violent, but because they were the one species that looked at impossible odds and considered them a personal challenge. The moment the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace, every person on every bridge fell completely silent.
But what they saw in the Kepler 442 system
was beyond anything their worst nightmares could have prepared them for. Massive mechanical structures floated through space like living nightmares made of metal and energy. Each one was easily the size of Earth's moon, but they moved with the fluid grace of predators hunting prey. Tentacle-like appendages hundreds of miles long reached out from their central cores, wrapping around chunks of what had once been planets and drawing them back into processing centers that glowed with hellish light, or the beautiful blue-green world of Kethra had once orbited its star. There was nothing left but an expanding cloud of processed materials. Metals, crystals, organic compounds, all floating in perfect geometric patterns as the devourers sorted through the remains of an entire civilization. Like a cosmic recycling plant, Admiral Thompson stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching. His tactical displays update with information that made no sense, according to everything humanity knew about physics and engineering. These things were not just big, they were impossible. No structure that large should be able to move so quickly. No machine should be able to process matter on such a massive scale, Sir Tactical Officer David Johnson whispered, his voice barely audible over the bridge's background noise. How do you fight something that big? Our biggest guns would be like throwing rocks at a mountain. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Every other species that had faced the Devourers had asked the same question and found no good answer. Their fleets had tried everything: long-range bombardment, coordinated attacks, even ramming their largest ships into the mechanical monsters. Nothing had worked, but humans had grown up on a world where impossible was just another word for Tuesday. COMM system crackled to life with the voice of Marine Colonel Beth Williams. Williams was a legend in the human military, a woman who had earned her rank by leading successful assault missions against everything from pirate strongholds to alien war machines. Her troops called her the Hammer because of her simple approach. 2 complex problems. Same way you eat an elephant, Admiral? Williams replied with the kind of confidence that came from years of doing impossible things, one bite at a time. My Marines have been stuck on these ships for 6 days with nothing to do but clean their weapons and think about violence. They are practically bouncing off the walls waiting for some action. Thompson felt a familiar smile spreading across his face. This was what separated humans from every other species in the galaxy. Where others saw insurmountable obstacles, humans saw interesting challenges. Where others calculated acceptable losses and strategic retreats, humans saw targets that needed destroying. He activated the fleet-wide communication system, knowing that his next orders would be recorded by military historians as either brilliant or completely insane. Probably both.
Our ships.
This is Admiral Thompson aboard the Retribution. You are all seeing what I am seeing. These devourers are big, they are scary, and they have already wiped out 3 star systems full of people who did not deserve to die. He paused, letting his words sink in across 200 ships and 20,000 crew members. Now I know what you are thinking. How do we fight something that size? How do we hurt machines that eat planets for breakfast? And I am going to tell you something that might sound crazy. On ships throughout the fleet, human soldiers and officers leaned closer to their comm systems. We are going in close. Real close. Close enough to smell the metal burning. Because these things think like machines. They calculate optimal responses based on logical tactics and predictable enemy behavior. They expect their opponents to fight. Smart to keep their distance. To use long-range weapons and careful strategies. Thompson pulled up the tactical display, showing his fleet's attack formation. Any alien military strategists looking at these plans have immediately recommended psychological evaluation for the entire human command structure. But here's the thing about us Deathworlders. We stopped being rational the moment our ancestors decided that living on a planet full of things trying to kill us sounded like fun. We are going to do something these machines will never expect. The Admiral's grin was audible in his voice as he gave the order that would either save the galaxy or get them all killed in the next hour. All ships, prepare for close-range boarding. Actions. We are going inside these things, and we are going to break them from the inside out. Remember, Marines, you grew up on Earth. Compared to trying to survive there, this is just another day at the office. Throughout the fleet, assault shuttles began launching from hangar bays. Small, fast attack craft loaded with Marines wearing powered armor and carrying weapons that could punch through starship hulls. They flew in formation toward enemies the size of moons, the crews singing old Earth drinking songs over the comm channels like they were heading to a party instead of almost certain death. Colonel Williams' voice came over the tactical channel, full of the kind of enthusiasm that made other species nervous. First wave launching now, Admiral Dezeta. Target those processing centers. If we can mess up their ability to turn planets into more machines, we might actually have a chance at this. The human fleet accelerated toward the devourers like a pack of wolves charging a herd of elephants, ready to prove once again why the rest of the galaxy was afraid of the species from the little blue planet in the middle of nowhere. The inside of a devourer construct was like walking through the intestines of a mechanical god. Captain Tom Rodriguez felt his powered armor's systems screaming warnings as gravitational fields strong enough to crush normal matter pressed down on him and his Marines. The corridors twisted in impossible directions, defying every law of physics that humans thought they understood. Rodriguez had been leading Marine assault teams for 15 years, but this was unlike anything he had ever experienced. The walls around them were not made of normal metal. They seemed to shift and flow like liquid, while somehow remaining solid enough to walk on. Strange lights pulsed through transparent sections carrying information or energy or something that human science had no name for. "Sir," called out Private Jake Morrison, his voice tight with controlled fear. "My suit's readings don't make any sense. According to the sensors, we should be pancakes by now, but somehow we're still moving." Rodriguez checked his own displays and found the same impossible readings. The gravitational forces inside this thing should have turned them into paste within seconds. But their armor systems were somehow compensating. Either human engineering was better than they thought, or these machines were allowing them to survive for reasons he did not want to think about. "Stay sharp, people," he ordered. over the squad come. We knew this was going to be weird when we volunteered to go inside something the size of a small moon. The corridor ahead of them opened into a vast chamber filled with machinery that hurt to look at directly. Geometric shapes that folded in on themselves, spinning devices that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human eye could process. And everywhere the sound of metal grinding against. Metal in rhythms that almost sounded like breathing. That was when the defenders found them. "Contact front," shouted Sergeant Amy Davis from her position at point. The machines that came swarming toward them looked like mechanical spiders crossed with industrial equipment. Each one was the size of a small car, with cutting tools and welding torches where a normal creature might have claws or teeth. In any normal military situation, smart move would have been to fall back and establish a defensive position. Cover call for support. Engage the enemy at maximum effective range with coordinated fire. Rodriguez and his Marines did the exact opposite. Charge, Rodriguez bellowed, and 43 Marines in powered armor sprinted directly into a swarm of mechanical nightmares with nothing but assault rifles and the kind of aggressive insanity that made humans the most feared warriors in the galaxy. The first wave of contact was chaos. Rifle fire echoed through the chamber as Marines opened up with everything they had. When Private Kelly Jong's weapon ran out of ammunition, she simply flipped it around and started using it as a club, the reinforced stock smashing through mechanical. Limbs like they were made of tinfoil, Sergeant Davis found herself grappling hand-to-hand with a defender twice her size. Her powered armor gave her the strength to match the machine, but it was pure human stubbornness that made her grab its cutting torch and turn it back on its owner. "You want to dance? Let's dance." "Rodriguez to all units," the captain called. Over the comm system as he watched his Marines turn a high-tech alien facility into something that looked like a bar fight. "These things are adapting to our tactics in real time. I'm watching their movement patterns change to counter our attacks. Switch to Protocol Chaos effective immediately." Protocol Chaos was a tactical doctrine that only humans could have developed, because only humans were crazy enough to think it made sense. When facing an enemy that could adapt to logical military tactics, the answer was simple. Stop using logical military tactics. Marine Tony Clark pulled the emergency release on his suit's life support system and hurled the high-pressure oxygen tank at a group of defenders. The resulting explosion took out 3 machines and created a cloud of debris that confused their sensors. Improvised explosives, people. If it can blow up, use it. Corporal Lisa Park discovered that her suit's maintenance toolkit included a plasma cutter designed for emergency repairs. She began using it to slice through enemy armor while humming an old Earth song, treating the whole situation like she was working on a particularly stubborn piece of plumbing. The most surreal moment came when Private Danny Foster ran out of conventional weapons entirely and began engaging in actual hand-to-hand combat with machines designed to level cities. His powered armor let him match their strength. But it was pure human determination that made him grab a mechanical defender and use it as a weapon against its companions. Throughout the chamber, the Devourers' defensive systems began experiencing something they had never encountered before: complete tactical confusion. Their combat algorithms were designed to analyze enemy behavior and develop optimal countermeasures. But how do you counter an enemy that uses their own life support equipment as grenades? How do you predict the actions of warriors who treat certain death as just another day at the office? The machines began making mistakes. Their movements became less coordinated. Some of them actually stopped fighting entirely, as if their programming could not process what they were experiencing. Engineering to bridge came the voice of Chief Engineer Robert Hayes over the comm system. Hayes was somewhere deeper in the construct, having split off from the main assault force to investigate the Devourers' power systems. "I've figured out how their replication matrices work. It's actually pretty elegant. They convert matter at the molecular level and use template patterns to build new units." Rodriguez dodged a cutting beam while listening to the engineer's report. "That's great, Hayes. Can you break it?" "Better than that, Captain. Give me 10 minutes and a plasma cutter, and I can reprogram their own systems to work against them." These machines are so advanced that they assume no one would be stupid enough to try brute force hacking their core systems. Rodriguez grinned as he watched his Marines systematically dismantle defenders, using tactics that would have horrified any civilized military academy. Hayes, you beautiful crazy genius. Do whatever you need to do. We'll keep the locals busy. While you work your magic. The battle raged on as humans proved once again that sometimes the best way to solve a complex problem was to hit it with something heavy until it stopped working. Retress. Admiral Thompson stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching his tactical display update with numbers that should have made him order a retreat hours ago. Of the 200 ships he had brought into this system, only 60 were still capable of fighting. The rest were either destroyed completely or so badly damaged that their crews were focused on just staying alive. The battle had been raging for 18 hours straight. Human Marines were still fighting inside the Devourer constructs, but progress was slow and costly. For every machine they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. The enemy's ability to repair and rebuild itself using processed planetary matter meant they were essentially fighting an opponent with unlimited resources any other species in the galaxy would have called for withdrawal by now. The acceptable loss ratio for most civilized military forces was around 15% casualties before strategic retreat became necessary. Humans had passed that mark before lunch and just kept fighting. "Sir," called out Navigation Officer Daniel Brooks, his voice hoarse from hours of coordinating fleet movements. "Latest casualty reports are coming in. We're at 70% losses across all ship classes. The Thunderbolt took a direct hit and lost their entire engineering section. The Vanguard is running on backup power only. The Stormrider is—" "Get the picture, Brooks," Thompson interrupted. It's not because he did not care about the losses, but because dwelling on them would not help anyone. Every name on that casualty list represented people he had served with, friends he had known for years. Crews who had followed him into this impossible situation because they believed in the mission. But that was the difference between humans and every other species in the galaxy. Humans had learned long ago. Sometimes the only way to win was to be willing to lose everything. Thompson activated the fleet-wide communication system, knowing that his next order would either end the war or get everyone killed. Possibly both. "All ships. This is Admiral Thompson. We're implementing Operation Sledgehammer immediately. All volunteer vessels report for final attack formation." The bridge fell completely silent. Everyone knew what Operation Sledgehammer meant. It was the plan they had hoped they would never have to use, filed away in the tactical database under desperate measures for impossible situations. Captain Jennifer Parker's voice came over the comm from the destroyer Fierce. Parker was one of the youngest ship commanders in the fleet, but she had earned her position through a combination of tactical brilliance and the kind of courage that made older officers shake their heads in amazement. Sir Parker's voice was carefully controlled, but Thompson could hear the emotion underneath. "That's 60 ships you're asking for. 60 crews." Thompson closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of command settling on his shoulders like a physical burden. Every military leader in history had faced moments like this, times when victory required asking good people to die for a cause bigger than themselves. "I know exactly what I'm asking, Captain," Thompson replied, his voice quiet but carrying clearly across the comm system. "The Devourers calculate their tactics based on self-preservation algorithms. They assume that any rational enemy will prioritize their own survival above mission objectives. They literally cannot understand an enemy that's willing to sacrifice everything to win." Across the fleet, ship commanders looked at their tactical displays and made the kind of calculations that would have been impossible for any other species. They were not just calculating odds of survival or strategic value. They were deciding whether the mission was worth dying for. The answer came back in the form of 60. Ships breaking away from the main fleet and forming up in attack formation. These were not the damaged vessels or the ships with skeleton crews. These were fully operational warships with complete crews who had volunteered for what everyone knew was a one-way mission. Captain Steve Wilson, commanding the frigate Dauntless, spoke for all of them when he opened a channel to the Admiral. Wilson was a veteran of a dozen impossible missions. A man who had earned 3 medals for actions that officially never happened. "Admiral, this is Captain Wilson. The Volunteer Squadron is in position and ready for synchronized hyperspace insertion directly into the primary Devourer core." His voice carried the calm professionalism of someone who had accepted what was about to happen. "It's been an honor serving with you, sir. See you on the other side." Thompson watched on his tactical display as 60 ships aligned themselves for a maneuver that violated every principle of space combat doctrine. They were going to jump to hyperspace while inside the gravity well of the Devourer construct, creating a cascade failure that would tear through subspace itself. The physics involved were theoretical at best. The energy release would be equivalent to a small supernova. A chain reaction might destroy everything in the system, including the remaining human ships. But it was the only way to completely eliminate an enemy that could rebuild itself from cosmic dust. "All ships execute Operation Sledgehammer on my mark," Thompson ordered. 3.2. Mark. 60 human warships vanished into hyperspace. Simultaneously, their jump drives overloading as they materialized inside the solid matter of the Devourer's core structure. The explosion that followed was visible from 3 star systems away. The cascade reaction tore through subspace like a wildfire, creating a chain reaction that consumed the mechanical plague in a matter of minutes. Ancient machines that had survived for millions of years were reduced to their component atoms by human engineering and human sacrifice. The energy wave expanded outward, disintegrating every Devourer construct in the system before finally dissipating into background radiation. When the sensors cleared and the energy storm subsided, the Kepler 442 system was silent. The Devourers were gone, leaving behind nothing but empty space and the scattered remains of the worlds they had consumed. The surviving ships of the human fleet limped back to the rally point, their hulls scorched and their crews exhausted beyond measure. That was when they discovered something that no one had expected. The Galactic Council fleet was still there, but every single ship was broadcasting surrender signals, not distress calls or requests for assistance. Surrender signals addressed specifically to the human fleet. Admiral Thompson opened a communication channel, genuinely confused by what he was seeing on his displays. "This is Admiral Thompson of the human 7th Expeditionary Fleet. The Devourer threat has been eliminated. All Council vessels can stand down and begin recovery operations." "Dea!" The response came from Ambassador Vextai himself, his voice carrying a mixture of awe and terror that Thompson had never heard from any alien species before. "Admiral Thompson, ... we surrender to you. All Council forces surrender unconditionally to the human fleet." Thompson looked around his bridge at the exhausted faces of his surviving crew members. These were people who had just saved a galaxy that had spent 2 centuries being afraid of them. "Ambassador, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding. We're not here to conquer anyone. We came here to help." Admiral Vext's voice was barely a whisper. "We finally understand why your species was quarantined. It wasn't to protect the galaxy from humanity. It was to preserve our comfortable illusion that the universe operates on rational principles." Thompson smiled, the first genuine smile he had managed in days. "Copy that, Ambassador. But we're not conquerors. We're just humans doing what we do best, winning impossible fights through magnificent insanity." The galaxy was safe, but every species in it now understood a truth that would change everything. The most dangerous force in the universe wasn't superior technology or advanced intelligence. It was a species that looked at impossible odds and refused to accept defeat as an option. Retriclod can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.